What is going on, everyone? Israel back again with another review. In today's video, we're doing kind of our May update video on the MLB. We are a lot of the way through this MLB season, which is pretty surprising to say throughout the board. But let's go through both wild cards and both leagues and see what's going on. Let's take a look at this AL right here. We obviously got our AL division winners right now, being the New York Yankees, the Cleveland Guardians, and Seattle Mariners, which I think is very different than what most people had heading into this season. I think in the AL East, a lot of people still have the Baltimore Orioles, who are still a good team. But the Yankees have just proven themselves time and time again to be absolutely insane. And you take a look at the Central with Cleveland. I don't think many people really thought that they would have a massive, comeback this season compared to last year, obviously, with the Twins kind of taking over that division. But they're obviously on a slow start this season. But yeah, they're still in first, leading that division. We look at the AL West now, very weak division, which is not what we thought. We thought at least 4 teams, maybe 3 teams would be kind of contending in that division, depending on what the other teams were going to do. We thought both Texas teams were going to be good. Thought Seattle was going to be good. Everyone thinks the Angels are good for some reason. Don't know why. But yeah, that division is just very weak right now. And Seattle's just running away with that. I mean, there's no really competition in that division, really, right now with the teams and how they're performing. So those are 3 division winners. I think the only one that's really surprising for me is probably Seattle, because the other 2 teams I think were kind of going to be good anyways. Let's look at this AL wild card right now. We have Baltimore as the number 1 seed, the Kansas City Royals as the number 2 seed, and the Minnesota Twins as your number 3 seed to round out the wild card. So once again, Baltimore is not surprising at all in this. I mean, they're going to be competing with the Yankees, kind of like the Rays were last season for that division winner. So you're not surprised with that at all. Those teams will probably get in. We get the Royals and Twins. Very interesting. The Royals are, I don't think it's a very surprise at all to anyone that they spent like $105 million and then the Bobby Witt extension on top of that they would actually be winning. You know what I'm saying? So I like to see that the Royals are here. That's what happens when you spend money. You tend to find yourself winning. That's kind of how it goes. But yeah, the Royals are back in the postseason right now. I think they're going to stay here. We'll wait and see. The AL is kind of weak, kind of not. It's very interesting right now how this is kind of rounding up. But yeah, I think the Royals could be a good playoff team right now. Just kind of wait and see how the rest of the season goes. But definitely a strong team on paper. Now, the Minnesota Twins are the 3rd wildcard seed. Obviously had a slow start to this season, came back on that crazy win streak. I think it was like 10, 11, 12 games or something like that. And they were able to just come back into the wildcard race and absolutely dominate the teams that they were facing. So they are obviously back up in here, and it's pretty comfortable right now. We're going to look at the other teams in just a moment, but it's pretty comfortable between these 6 teams that they have a good shot to make the playoffs. Now, looking at the rest, obviously, the Red Sox are the closest at the 3.5 game mark out of the wild cards, so that's why it's pretty comfortable right now. We look at some of their teams. The Red Sox, once again, having a pretty good season. Don't think a lot of people thought they would be this good, so definitely interesting. They're 30-30 right now. Then we look at Detroit, we look at the Rangers, we look at the Rays even. Kind of all struggling this season. They haven't really found themselves in that race at all. The Rays and Rangers, I think, is definitely surprising to me. The Rangers obviously come off that World Series, but it's still a good team. I do understand that they had, 2 MVP candidates last year in Semien and Seager. They're not having the best year. Obviously, we had Josh Young get hurt, which wasn't ideal for them. Yeah, so those 3 teams, we'll kind of see where they go. I think Detroit is an interesting team. I kind of had that team pretty highly up, but they also been playing, not the best baseball. So let's move down to the bottom 5 teams. You have the Blue Jays, Astros, Athletics, Angels, and White Sox. I think at this point, we could say the Athletics, Angels, White Sox are done. Their season's over. I don't think they're going to do anything special. I do think those teams could be interesting at the trade deadline. I mean, we'll see what happens with those squads. Definitely have a decent amount of players that could be used on other teams. We'll see if they want to make any trades. I think they will, but we'll wait and see on that. The Astros, Blue Jays, I think still have a shot for the postseason, but they have to turn around right now, quickly. Because, it's not hot for both these teams. Blue Jays, once again, they're, 4.5 out. They're kind of with everyone else in that aspect. But the Astros, I think, can still turn it around. But they got to go on, a crazy win streak or just win every series or something like that. Because, I think that team is good. It's just they've been playing really bad this season. So it just hasn't been it. All right, let's move over on to the NL now. Let's start with our division winners. We obviously got the Phillies, Dodgers, and Brewers. I think this is pretty much what I would expect from the West and the Central. I mean, same stuff. I don't really think anything's changed there. In my opinion. So Dodgers, Brewers makes sense. The Phillies kind of came out of nowhere. The Braves have also regressed with some injuries they have, with Riley getting hurt for that little bit. They got Acuna hurt, obviously, and they haven't been playing the best baseball they could play. So that's kind of why they're not in that category. The Phillies have been playing some great baseball, though. They've been absolutely dominating the league across the board. So I think it's definitely that home record. They're 24-9 at home, which is pretty insane. Yeah, I think that definitely has something to do with that. I'm pretty sure the best in the majors throughout the whole league. So that's pretty impressive. And then the West and Central are just so weak. So, I mean, it just makes sense. Best teams come out of it. I'm not really surprised by those two. All right, going over to the NL wildcard right now, we got the Braves, Padres, and Cardinals in this conversation. So the Braves, once again, will be in the playoffs. Division winner wildcard, they're going to be in the playoffs. The Padres right now, they're 2 games over 500. So, this is a definitely interesting team. That Luis Arias trade, I think, definitely helped this team out a lot. And I'm glad they did that early, because they made the mistakes last year of doing it later. And they would have had it if they had a couple more games to play. But, it was too little too late. So I'm glad they made that trade early. That team should be good. They should stay in here. But the NL is very weak across the board. We're going to get into that in just a second. So definitely interesting to see the Padres up here. I think they should be a postseason team if everything stays the same. And the Cardinals being here, they're 28-29, somehow a postseason squad. And this is going to go back to my point again with the NL being terrible. But they recently are on in the last 10 games are 7-3. They've been playing really good baseball as of recently. So definitely deserved a shot in this wild card. But going back to my other point, we had the Cubs up here. I think the Giants were in here at one point. The Nationals. Like, we take a look at the rest of this wild card. We got the Cubs, Giants, game and a half out, who are both 29-31, which is not the best. But obviously, then we got the Nationals, the Diamondbacks, Pittsburgh Reds, the Mets, Rockies, and Marlins. So going off this, we can just immediately say the Marlins and Rockies are done. The season's done. Good luck next year. We'll see what they could do with those squads. That's the blow it up bowl down there. The Mets and Reds, I'm going to put in the same category because I don't think these teams are going to make the playoffs. I think they're a little far out, especially because they got to jump the whole league. It's going to be very challenging, but I do think the Reds, they got to turn it around. They're currently 6 out of 4 of the last 10. Not horrible, but I think they can still turn it around, but it's going to take a lot of work. And then we move up the tier with the Diamondbacks and the Pirates, both at 27-32. Now, the Diamondbacks are an interesting squad. They obviously won 85 games last year. So, they barely got in the playoffs, and they went on that crazy run. So, can they do it again? Probably. I think they gotta start winning, though, obviously. So, I'm not really sure from that team. They're in a hard division. We'll kind of see what happens. I think the Pirates, I think it's going to be a little bit easier just because that division's a lot weaker, compared to all the teams. But we'll see when these teams, they definitely still have a shot, but I think they, could go on a crazy win streak or win a couple games or make a couple trades maybe, and they could be back in the mix. The Nationals are a very interesting team. I don't think a lot of people thought this team would even be up here. I think a lot of people had this team 4th in the division race, or 3rd, and not being good at all. But they're in the mix too, 27-31, not a horrible team at all. Definitely had some good stars, but CJ Abrams, obviously they won in their last 10, they're 6-4, so pretty good baseball overall. And we'll see what this team does. I don't think they're going to be in the playoffs, but I think they could be on the cusp of the Nationals being back up to the top like they were those years ago, which will be very interesting. And then we have the Cubs and Giants, which I think these teams should be good. I know the Cubs have went on a massive losing streak. They're currently 2-8 in their last 10. They've definitely fallen off a lot recently. And so kind of have the Giants a little bit. They're on a 4-game losing streak right now. Not the best, but I think these teams can get back to their form. Got to get on a nice winning streak and get off the losing streaks, win a couple series here and there. They do play some easier teams coming up, so hopefully they can secure the bag on those teams. But we'll kind of see what happens on those squads, as I think it's going to be a pretty close race as we had last year in the wild card. I think some of these teams are going to get back in the winning column. I don't think we're going to have a negative team in the postseason. I'd hope not. But we'll end up seeing what happens. I think it's going to be a good race like we had last year. But I think it was like 3 or 4 teams. It was 6 originally, and then it was like 3 or 4 that actually had a shot. Between was the Marlins, the Diamondbacks, the Cubs, and even I think the Reds got in there, and the Padres were in there as well. There's a lot of teams in there last year, so should be an interesting race. Well, there we go. That is the MLB at a whole, and it's pretty interesting league that we have across the board right here. Not a lot of positive teams compared to how many teams that are losing right now, but we can take a look at the overall standings of the whole league in general. You can see the cutoff is pretty short at the Red Sox, so not a lot of teams are really positive that are fighting for a spot. We got a lot of negative teams on this side, so definitely a very one-sided league, it looks like, with the good teams just destroying kind of everyone, and then you got some of the middle of the pack teams that are still struggling on and kind of winning. But we'll see on the aspect of that. Should be pretty interesting as we head into the rest of this season. We got the All-Star break coming up pretty shortly. I've already seen some promotion about it, so that's pretty exciting. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know, who do you guys think has got a good shot to turn their season around? Who's going to make some trades? Who's going to go crazy with their team? I want to know. Let me know in the comment section down below. But if you guys enjoyed this one, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you guys in the next one. Peace out, everyone.